That would help. Good morning and welcome to the Red Ned Show, where it's always morning, even in the afternoon. I am your host, Jay Edgar, and I'm joined today by a guest because, once again, the campaign trail has taken our regular co-hostess away from us. We wish her well in the upcoming craziness that she has to deal with coming up here. And instead, I am welcoming Maddy, the news chick from over on Twitter, who is a blogger, and you've done some other radio work, have you not?
Yeah, when I had a stable place, I actually did my own show, my own news show, and there she goes, barking, crouching, bossy, hidden pitbull. I did a morning news show, and I also did an old-time radio show, which I will be getting back to as soon as we get a permanent residence again.
Well, that's always good here. Well, thank you very, very much for taking some time and hanging out with us today, helping me read the news and catch up with the news for the week here because there has been a lot of it. Something I can definitely say as we're coming along here and winding down into the final moments of election time here. It's crunch time right now. The day is tomorrow, and we've got a bunch of stuff to work with over on the channel with there as well. But yeah, thank you once again.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little bit of a brief overview of what we've got to get to today. We are going to be spending a lot of time talking about the election and what our picks are, what we've seen from going around the country, watching the news, and everything else that's going to come out of there. So we'll talk a bit about that and possibly the influence of third parties as well. Philadelphia erupted into riots very shortly after Clint and I were turning the camera off last week. So that's changed the news. It's changed the cycle. So we'll talk a bit about what happened with that. Amy Coney Barrett was officially confirmed as, once again, Clint and I were turning the camera off last week, so we'll talk a bit about what happened there, what this means going forward, and what the people have been saying on both sides of the aisle because of it. And, of course, Hunter's laptops are being a major driving force of this election. So we'll talk a little bit about the updates, including the fact that Bob Alinsky sat on Tucker and mysteriously all the documents went missing after that. It's going to be all of that and more over on the Red Net Show. Thanks for checking us out. We are live right now to YouTube, DLive, Twitch, Periscope, Facebook. And if you're over on Facebook, get into one of the links above you because we'd love to take your chat in between topics. And I can't see if you're over on Facebook. It doesn't feed into the chat robot. So head on over into the YouTube, the DLive, or the Twitch. Come and hang out with us and get your questions answered. Or if you can't catch us live, catch us on the go anytime over on YouTube or over on BitChute.com. We auto-upload to both of those platforms. Or you can find us on the audio platforms, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify. And if you're over on iTunes, leave us that 5-star rating and a good review. That helps us move up the charts. Lastly, you can catch all of our replays along with all of my friends over on freedomscoop.com, which will be your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs. We carry great shows such as The Generational Gap, The R-Rated Conservative, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff. We also carry the Daily Ignoramus and the Freckles and Brit Show. So come on over there, check all of our friends out over on the channel, and pick up some of our swag and help us support great creators. So you're a first-timer over here, and I've been kind of following along with your Discord server as well. I haven't really seen the blog yet, but I've been following along with your Discord server. But why don't you tell the guests, or the live chat rather, a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am just the person that got sick and tired of, all the left-leaning and blatant bias out there. So I decided to start doing my own little news blog and investigative stuff. I cover crime, mostly current events and things like that. I used to be heavy into the politics a long, long time ago, but I got so tired of seeing the Russian collusion stuff. I think it burnt me out, so I took a break from it. But I am back, mostly on the blog since I'm on the road. But since I have this wonderful little headset here that cancels out a lot of the truck noise, I might actually be uploading videos soon. So
it's always fun. It's a rewarding topic. That's actually how I got my channel started, was uploading videos. And then we moved on into live streaming and a lot of news things. How did you get into news and blogging and all of this here? Everybody's got an interesting story about this, I've always found from...
Well, I started, my YouTube channel started more like tutorials on how to use Evernote and other things like that because I've always been a writer, whether it was fiction or essays, poetry, things like that. And I've always wanted to help other people. And then when I started the YouTube channel, it was mainly tutorials. And then I kind of followed the bandwagon wave of the anti-SJW stuff for a while and then realized that was getting repetitive. And my husband and I talked about it, and he goes, "Why don't we start a news show? We do news our way. We just report the facts there, let everybody draw their own conclusions." I said, "Cool. So since we like coffee, why don't we call it the Morning Brew?" So that's how that came about. And yeah, we've been doing it on and off ever since. I did have another partner for a while, but he has chronic pain issues, so he can't be, as reliable. I don't blame it on him. When you get up in cold weathers and your body's like you're not doing nothing, you're not
Yeah.
doing anything. So, but yeah, it's been a journey. I realized that a lot of people started respecting what I did and looked to me when the Charlottesville incident happened a few years back. And then a friend of mine named Irate Alex, who was doing Irate Bear, asked me if I had a timeline of what was going on. And I said I was getting research in order to get it together. And his reply on Twitter was, "When you have something, can you give it to me?" And I went, "Oh, crap, a bigger channel wants information from me." It was like, Senpai noticed me. Holy crap. And it's been a wild ride since then.
It was interesting too, and I'm not going to have you say what city or anything here, but just off of something that we noticed right before we got started here, you are actually the second person ever to be on this show who's in the same state as me at the same time.
Yeah, we happen to be parked here for the night, so.
You're on the other end, of course, but yeah, my friend Brian came over and helped me out, and he and I used to hang out IRL back when I lived down in Kenosha. So yeah, he popped on and helped me out one week back when it was still Ed's World, back when I was still having rotating guests every week, and yeah, this is only the second time somebody that's currently in Wisconsin has ever been on this show.
That's cool.
All right. We are going to check in with the live chat here quick, and then we're going to pop into topics. We got a little bit of house cleaning to do over at the top of the show here. Some updates and some things to go with here. Sully Blue is back here. Sully Blue says, "Long time no see." Yeah, he was one of my regular over on the morning show. So welcome back, Sully. I haven't seen you for, I think, a month at this point. Saint Actual is in here over on the D Live side. Says, "Good evening, bitches." Seawall728, our trusty mod over on Twitch, is riding in with his half track with the Banner Hammer 88, getting ready to patrol the Twitch side and make sure that everybody is doing okay over there. Let's see. I think that's everybody here for. Oh, no, we got Chilaga 1984 is in here saying, "Good to see you, Sully," as well. So, welcome on in, everybody. Breakdown with Birkenhoff just popped in right at the last second. All right. And with that, we're going to go into topics here. Looks like I got an alert over here. Oh, we've got Zoom chat over here.
Yeah, I posted the link to my blog in case you wanted to, because I can't put it in the YouTube chat. Google deletes it.
Oh.
Yeah.
And
since I'm running on a hotspot, if I open up more than one live stream, you won't be able to hear me talking.
I can do that, actually. Haha. See, I can put links in, but nobody else can. All right. So that's what we've got off of here. So with that, we're going to move into topics. A little bit of house cleaning to get started with. First and foremost, we've got some updates from my former hometown of Kenosha. Kyle Rittenhouse has been officially extradited. He will face homicide charges in Wisconsin. Quick little read from NPR here, which we're not going to talk like this when we read from NPR because that would make people fall asleep while they're going on the road. 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse, who's charged with fatally shooting two men and wounding a third during a protest in Kenosha, Wisconsin, was extradited from Illinois to Wisconsin following the ruling of Lake County Judge Paul Novak. So, to catch back up with everybody who's been following along at home, Kyle Rittenhouse was involved with the shooting that I still swear is what ended all of the riots in Kenosha back on that fateful day. I don't think it was the National Guard. I think it was the fact that somebody shot back.
Mm-hmm.
And then he drove home. And, of course, he was facing down weapons charges in Illinois. Those were dropped because he never did possess the firearm in Illinois, which would have been illegal at the time. So, after a months long review over his case in Illinois, they are now officially ready to extradite him back to Wisconsin, where he's facing second degree murder. What's your take on this?
I think it should be self defense. That's exactly what it was. I mean, he was. Everybody was like, well, he went there to cause. No, he lived 12 miles away from where he worked. He worked in that town that he defended. People were coming after him. To me, it was self defense, plain and simple.
Mm-hmm.
And if they were going to get him on anything, it would have been possessing a weapon, being a minor. That would have been the only charge they could have got him on.
Well, they might get him on misdemeanor flight too. There's a
Well,
there's a possibility of that, but that's not sitting up on the docket for the charges right now. But technically, he is guilty of misdemeanor flight because, and of course, ignorance of the law is no excuse. But he didn't know either. The cops
yeah.
just let him walk by after everything happened, and he thought that he was all in the clear. But in Wisconsin, if you kill somebody, you would better stop and submit to the law enforcement because otherwise, you leave state lines. You are on a misdemeanor flight.
Some reports had him actually turning himself into the police, but I
Mm-hmm.
think that's after he got home or something.
Yes, yes. As soon as he got home, he turned himself in. But he also did try to turn himself in on the street that day too. It was interesting. I went down and live streamed back down there and showed everybody the gas station where all that happened in front of.
Jeez.
I was down there live streaming 2 days that week. It was crazy.
We hit Kenosha to do a delivery, I think, 4 or 5 days after that happened.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to live within 2 miles of where all the rioting and everything happened. I was within 2 miles of it.
Oof.
So, just to go back down there, so I'm quite a bit further west at this point. I don't live in Kenosha anymore. I'm not going to say the city, obviously, because it's small, but I'm further west by a considerable amount. And yeah, just to go back there and see it all again, and see some of the places I used to hang out because it was so close to me was quite the shocker. So we will be watching the Rittenhouse case a little bit closer, and once it turns into a bigger case when the trial comes around, then we will get a little bit more topic. And once we're not all swallowed up by the election too. Moving on from the Hill, which is going to autoplay.
Who
We actually might listen to that just because that was an epic quote that came out of this. But tech
Yes.
CEOs clash with lawmakers in contentious hearings. So all of the tech guys got to zoom into Congress last week and talk about how they're not putting their finger on the election, even though they're totally putting their finger up on the election. There wasn't a lot. I would have made this a main topic, but there really wasn't a lot that came out of this. Nothing's going to happen out of it. Absolutely nothing's going to happen on it. The most that we're going to get out of this is making memes about Jack Dorsey's beard.
Yeah, because he looks like a beach bum. He really looks like a beach bum.
I
This
actually,
isn't the first time that social media has been brought into Congress or even investigated. I think the first time was actually Facebook. The first time they pulled some shenanigans,
Mhm.
and then now it's Mr. Mr. Twitter. So, and it's like, yeah, you guys just can't seem to not let people say things what they want to say because to me, in my personal opinion, they've crossed the line and they're curating the content that is posted on their site. And when you do that, you become a publisher. So to me, you shouldn't have those protections anymore because you're in essence by shadow banning, deleting, warning people, putting warnings on the tweets and stuff, you're literally editing your site.
Right.
So you're not a platform anymore.
Well, and that's, I mean, the way Section 230 is written right now, they can get away with doing that for a little bit. But, I mean, the worst part of it is not the fact that they're doing it and they're complying with the Section 230 laws. It's the fact that they're lying about it. I mean, Dorsey
Yeah.
got up there and said, no, we're not affecting the election at all.
Yeah, okay.
That's a problem, Tim, and we're going to look into that. Do you ever watch Freedom Tunes?
No, I probably would start. So
It, Seamus is hilarious, and he did the Dorsey boy. He actually did a video of the interview where Jack Dorsey was in with Tim Pool on Rogan, and just the voices of Dorsey throwing this. That's a problem, Tim, and we need to look into that. And Tim Pool lent his own voice to that video. It was a funny one.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, I just Cruz lit in to dude. I loved it. I loved watching the video clip. It
Would
was
would
great.
would, would this be the light-in that you're talking about?
Mr. Dorsey, who the
Yes.
hell elected you and put you in charge of what the media are allowed to report and what the American people are allowed to hear? And why do you persist in behaving as a Democratic super PAC, silencing views to the contrary of your political beliefs?
Well,
And like I said, nothing's really going to come out of this here. They're just going to get up there and do their hobby horse thing. The left in the Judiciary Committee was all praising and happy for everything, and the right was looking for their little pet project. So yeah, this isn't going anywhere.
No. It would be nice if it did, though. It really would be, because as much as some people tend to deny it, there is a silencing on social media of people that are not, quote unquote, on the script, so to speak. Any of us that speak against mainstream media and the narrative that is out there currently, we tend to get socked around virtually. There's been, I think it was recently, that YouTube finally fixed my channel, which they broke, because I couldn't there was no icon on my channel. I couldn't share my channel to link it to anything. There was one time there where on my main channel, which is what I'm on through YouTube, I couldn't even type in chats.
Hmm.
Uh,
Interesting.
and yeah, and they won't even, like, you posted my blog link. Google deleted that, because if you scroll up, you'll see the message was deleted. I went over to my proper channel in my community tab and posted it, and saw the exact moment they deleted it off my own channel.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, we'll figure out a way to get it there. And I know it popped up in the D Live and the Twitch chat and maybe somebody can verify that there. You guys over on D Live and Twitch, make sure that you can see the link for the blog. It looks like a couple people have been reading it on the other sites, so that's why we have alternatives.
Yep. Thank you very much for the compliment breakdown.
All right, let's keep going here. AOC, everybody's favorite Democratic Socialist, says she may seek higher office.
Oh,
And
Lord.
that has been something that we have been hearing about off and on, grumbled about, as she's grown older and more, let's say, insufferable throughout her
Yeah.
House career. I know that right from the beginning, she said, like 2 days after she was sworn in, she said she's probably going to go and try and primary either Gillibrand or Schumer. So
I
put
just
that woman in the Senate.
Yeah, she just, every time she opens her mouth, I'm like, I'm glad you don't represent the entire Hispanic community, because you are dumb. Really dumb. She's supposed to have a degree in economics, and she has no clue how the economy works. I'm still trying to figure out how that happened.
Have you been to college? Because I went. I know how it worked, how it happened. I went to college. I know exactly what they're throwing out there at people.
No, I have not. All my stuff I have learned through trial and error and research and stuff. I did, when my kid was 2, tried to go to college, but not for anything in the political or economic realm. I actually tried to go for a mechanical drafting degree.
Yeah. As far as Cortez goes, she's talked about the Senate, as I mentioned, but there's also talk of pulling her into a potential Biden administration or going into the executive branch under one position or the other. So, a couple things to watch for with her.
Hmm.
But you know what? If she got into the Biden administration, it would pull her out of the representation, at least.
Yeah, that part is, I found it today on Twitter. It's called the Unity program, where he's also getting Sanders in on it for some sort of this is going to sound very Chinese, social credit system, along with other socialist and wonderful communist policies.
Well, you know, the social credit score is the best thing for that is that I will decide how much pudding cup that you get and how much pudding cup I get. All right, let's keep going from that one there. From the Daily Wire again, suspected terrorists kill 3 in French church attack. Mayor calls to purge Islamofascism. So, the people in Nice, especially in the political aspect, are starting to get pissed over
Oh,
all
yeah.
this open immigration that they've been having here because, And not every person who comes up from a Middle Eastern country is a radical Islamist who is going to go out and kill everybody. But it's happening enough that they're starting to take notice.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
So,
yeah.
so what have you seen on this story?
I have seen a lot of protesting, a lot of calls for Macron to step down, telling them that he's not doing his job, that he is not allowing them to speak freely, that they should be able to criticize everything that they want to criticize, including Islam, because this is what the fourth or fifth cover Charlie Hebdo has released that has sparked stuff. The teacher in the classroom that got beheaded because they showed a cartoon, and I love how they call beheadings knife attacks.
Mm-hmm.
That's a nice little euphemism, I think.
I mean, it's technically a knife, so
Yeah, knives of peace.
yeah. And I mean, I am not as because I'm pretty open to the idea of diversity. I always have been. I'm not going to go as far as Blonde and the Belly of the Beast did on their show last night, where she's pretty much saying, purge everybody out and make France white again. I'm not that far, but if you are going to bring people in who do not agree with your nation's values, then you're going to start seeing stuff like this when they come in and try and take over. So
Yeah,
there is a balance.
When the mass immigration started happening, I've got friends that I talked to that were over in the UK,
Mm-hmm.
some that were over in Spain, and I was talking to all of them, and they never wanted the open borders. And the problem with open borders is you're not vetting anybody that comes in. They can come in freely.
Mm-hmm.
And this led to no-go zones.
Yep.
This led to, those particular gangs I don't want to mention on your channel in case your channel ever gets monetized that, have certain illegal proclivities toward women and small children.
Oh, goodness.
Right. But whenever anybody asks the government, oh no, those don't exist, those gangs don't exist, I'm like, okay, but I'm talking to a bunch of people that say yes, those gangs do exist. So it was, who do you believe? Well, I'm going to believe the people on the ground in the street that are telling me what's going on and how their lives are going to utter crap
Mm-hmm.
over what's coming out in the press.
Fair enough. So we'll be watching that coming up out of Europe here. Everybody's favorite Canadian transsexual is in the news again.
Yeah.
From the Blaze, transgender activist with male genitalia files human rights complaint after being rejected by a female-only beauty pageant. I read this article on Contemporary because I thought it was interesting culturally. I had no idea, and this was the article that I used until I was 2 paragraphs in, that it was Jonathan/Jessica Yaniv. Of course it was.
Of
Wax
course.
my weird tranny balls, Jessica Yaniv.
It was like I noticed something with a pattern with this one because the beauty pageant that he is suing, he, she, it, they, them, whatever, is suing, is they already had a caveat in there for post-op trans women.
Mm-hmm.
They allow those. They just don't allow trans women with male genitalia. And then I started digging a little deeper and found out that this pageant was actually ran by Asian people. Well, who ran the salons that he filed the complaints against? Asian people. So, Mr. Yaniv is just a teensy bit racist.
Maybe.
Just a teensy bit.
And I mean, I've seen Jessica Yaniv before, and honestly, I think one of the prerequisites to being in a beauty pageant is to be beautiful at some point. To at least some people, but that's a face a mother could love. Uh-oh. We're going to get dumped off here in just a second.
Okay.
Because I just had the weird Spectrum internet bubble, which I thought they fixed again. So give that a second to load back up while we see F's in the chat. No, it didn't kick us off. We are still on.
Yes. See,
We just lost a couple
Seawall
frames.
over there on Twitch. He got rejected because he still had his male parts.
Yeah.
That was the official reason why he got rejected.
All right, we are still live too, so that's a good thing. I thought that we were about to get bumped off because I saw the little icon change over in the corner. Yeah, for whatever reason, Spectrum it's a half a second it drops the internet connection.
I feel you. That happened to me when we were living in Texas. Every once in a while, it would just for a couple seconds, then come back, then go and come back. And I'm like, can you just stay? That'd be good.
All right. The next one that I have here on the lightning round, Bezos, who owns Amazon and WAPO, might buy CNN. And the left thinks that Bezos and the rich people like Bezos are going to get taxed extra when they're sitting here sucking off the Democratic Party.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Him and a bunch of other corporations to me are treading dangerously close to being a monopoly, and I think these people really need to be looked at because, especially Google, what isn't Google into? And Amazon is getting just as bad.
Yeah. And I mean, I use Amazon. I don't mind Jeff Bezos so much. It's just the fact, I mean, he's a self made guy and he came from nothing. He wound up being one of the richest people in the world by going up and self making. But he does buy up anybody who tries to make a counter site to him. That's the only problem I really have with this whole thing. And yes, then he got the Washington Post and drug them severely to the left, even further than they already were. And now he wants to go to CNN, which is basically the propaganda arm of the Democrat Party to begin with.
Yeah, the Commie News Network. Oh.
So yes, I believe they had a number on here. CNN is owned by AT&T, which bought Time Warner for $85 billion. I thought they had a number of what he. Such a purchase would cost a reported $10 billion.
Jeez.
Here you go. That's what Bezos would do with that.
Yeah, no kidding. That's chump change to him at this point. Like, okay, I'll buy that.
All right. The next piece in the lightning round, I actually have a quick video that I wanted to show you guys that Now This came out and decided that they wanted to tell you how they felt about taxes. Let me get that one up there and we'll see what that sounded like. We watched this on the morning show already, but I figured bore repeating again. So let's have a listen to that and see what we've got. Most Americans got smaller tax refunds thanks to Trump.
My refund was about half of what it normally is.
We were really banking on the refund. I called my husband immediately, crying.
Tax refunds this year are down $7.6 billion compared to 2018.
So I went back in and I checked everything and then I started to cry.
This year, I just don't have a refund.
Trump supporter Karen Spizell-Matheny was counting on a refund to help cover her medical bills related to her failing kidney.
My refund was about half of what it normally is. It used to be like $4,000 and then I got $2,000 this year.
This is the first tax season since Trump's tax plan went into effect. Most people paid less in taxes last year and got slightly higher paychecks. But for many, that isn't the same as a large refund check.
But this year, instead of getting back the $5,000 Wright was expecting and that she and her husband got last year, the Houston mom found they actually owed the government money. With the birth of new daughter Olivia just 3 weeks ago, Wright says her family was counting on a tax refund to cover the cost of her unpaid maternity leave.
We were really banking on the refund because we live paycheck to paycheck. We can't, in a sense, save as of right now.
With 3 kids in college, the Edney family is now scrambling. Last year, they got a $10,000 refund, but because of high property taxes, this year, they owe $10,000.
I don't think anybody would have been able to do the tax cuts like I did. We got the greatest tax cuts ever.
Retail sales were significantly lower in the first quarter. Analysts say lower tax refunds are to blame for the spending drop. Last year, the median family's refund was more than 3 weeks' pay.
Isadora Bielski says last year her family of 4's tax refund topped $3,600. But this time around, when she did their taxes,
I plugged it all in and at first I thought, oh my goodness, we're getting $8,000 back. And then I realized it was the wrong color. So I went back in and I checked everything and then I started to cry.
I believe that he isn't showing his income tax returns because he didn't pay anything, and we are paying in money, and he's paying nothing when he's making billions or whatever he's at. So maybe he just doesn't understand.
We had no idea that this was coming, and I feel terrible for families that are going to have the same shock that we had, that refund check we thought was coming will not be.
Roughly 70% of the GOP tax cut benefits go to the wealthiest 20%. The top 1% alone receives 34% of the total benefits. Meanwhile, the tax cuts help drive up the federal budget deficit. That's true, which jumped 17% to $779 billion last year after the tax cuts were passed. So that's what Now This had to say about the tax cuts, and I saw a lot of eye rolling there. So do you wanna lead?
Okay. Once he said he was doing the tax cuts, I remember us covering the tax cuts. We were still in Georgia at the time. We went down the list of what he was cutting and stuff. The whole thing to me is when you get a tax cut, that means you're having less taken out of your paycheck, which means if you're not paying attention to what's going on with your taxes and you're not adjusting your W-2 or your I-9 or any of that stuff in accordance with these tax cuts, you're going to wind up owing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you pay less taxes and less money is coming out of your check for taxes, your refund isn't going to be as big as it used to be. Now, is a big tax refund great? Sure, you can normally buy things that you wouldn't. That's when you splurge.
Mm-hmm.
When you get the refund, that's when you splurge. But a refund doesn't compensate for poor budgeting decisions throughout the year and not paying attention to how much money is coming out of your paycheck every time you get a check. It boggles the imagination, the amount of people that are angry because, oh, we can't save for this, or we couldn't get this, and we were banking on this for this. And I had conversations aplenty with people, and I'm like, as much as you guys like to say this, there are a lot of things when you get down to it, when your budget is tight and you have to cut out non-essential things, that you have to bite the bullet. Cable is not essential.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking for food, water, utilities. These are essential things. And anything else is extra. Your cable bill, your internet bill, as much as some people would like to say, I can't live without internet. Unless you're a content creator and you need an internet signal in order to create your content and get it out there and get seen, most of the time you can always go to the library and use library internet, your free Wi-Fi at a coffee shop. There are ways around it until you can afford it again. But if you're not willing to make those sacrifices when you realize you can't afford it, you can't blame the tax cuts on that because your refund isn't what you thought it should be.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right on that. Unless you're making money off of the internet, you don't need it necessarily. And there are people out there that say that you do. There are people on Twitter every day that say, well, internet's a necessity, so we need that. And it's not.
No. And then there are people who would say that, well, I can't have my phone cut off. I said, do you realize it's a federal law that whether or not you have phone service, you have to have the ability to dial 911?
Mm-hmm. So that's what that is. I mean, yes, you're getting slightly higher paychecks. My paycheck went up $50 a week.
Yeah.
After the tax cuts went in. And yes, I actually wound up owing in a slight amount at the end of this year as well after my taxes were filed. I had a slight owe that I had to go and pay them for. And these people are going to be dead surprised when they see their refunds the next time through after they took that first stimulus.
Yeah.
Because I read the tax code and that's a loan against your tax return or tax refund.
Yeah.
No, they can't take it back to negative, so they can't pull taxes back off of it. But that is a loan against your tax refund. So there are a lot of people that are going to be awfully pissed next year.
I mean, it's when they started saying, well, we're going to give stimulus checks, that was, that always makes me nervous when the government is going to give you quote unquote free money. It's got to come from somewhere.
Nothing. And that's why I cut mine up. I didn't take mine. I cut that thing right up and I said, I sent it back to him. I said, you don't have the money to cover this check.
Yeah.
I know. I cover the news every week. You do not have the money to cover this.
Yeah. Oh, it's like people that are complaining on Twitter that, they have hundreds of thousands of dollars in college debt and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, I went to college for a couple of years. Well, how much do you owe? Nothing. It was called a Pell Grant.
Yeah. All right, let's keep going here. I got just a couple more, then we'll check for the live chat quick, and then we will go and talk election. Adam Schiff calls for investigation based on New York Times article discredited by anti-Trump former FBI officials. So, Adam Schiff is going back and looking at Russian collusion, not for 2020, but for 2016, once again. And his report is brought forward from the book Donald Trump versus the United States Inside the Struggle to Stop a President.
Marsha, Russia. Give me a frickin' break.
Yeah,
this has been debunked so many times. The horse is not only dead, it's decayed at this point. The only thing that's left are the bones. Can we please find something else? Lord, these people just do not quit.
No, that they don't. But that's what we're going to see off of that there. And the last one that I have before we jump into presidential politics is the New York Post is reinstated. Their suspension is over. They're out of Twitmo. From the Wrap, Twitter ends New York Post suspension over dubiously sourced Hunter Biden story. The Post account was locked for 16 days. 16 days that the New York Post couldn't go and post on Twitter.
This was after they lifted the ban on people sharing the link and information that people were finding on the laptop. This was after. And then, and like I said, this was also after Cruz blasted him because, our dear Mr. Twitter himself was like, well, no, I can't lift the ban. Yes, you can. You're the one that owns Twitter. Tell somebody to flip the switch and let New York Post post.
That's a problem, Tim, and we're looking into that.
Right? Everything's a problem, but there's never any solutions.
I noticed this, and I said this on the morning show with the beard and the sandy hair because I thought that he had darker hair at one point. But the first thing I said when I saw the picture of Dorsey in the article I was reading on the morning show was, "What is that? Is that Mark Hamill with a massive fucking beard?" Because he did. That's what he looked like.
To me, he looks like a cross between a beach bum and what a younger version of Gandalf would look like if he was strung out on meth.
All right, let's see what the live chat say it in here. That looks like they are busy today, which is awesome. 100 messages today. Well, that does go with the morning show. I got some new names in here as well. Let's see. That is where the blog went up there. Batman says, poopy doopy doo. Seawall says, Rittenhouse's defense team is a joke. Saint says, Rittenhouse is being boned. Harvey McLeod is in here. Welcome on in, Harvey. How is the West Coast? Are you getting ready for that Silicon Valley election results? The Batman says, why does Maddy look like she's on one of the Apollo missions?
Because I'm in the truck cab.
Harvey says, who's facing second degree? That would be Kyle Rittenhouse. Going to trial doesn't mean he'll be convicted. The jury will have to decide. With mainstream news media forcing jury poisoning down their throats. Ronan says, I see they let bats in here, but the Batman says, here, boy, fetch the stick, Ronan. I don't know what's going on between those two, but it sounds like a bromance.
Those two are always picking on each other when they're in the same chat.
Ronan and Batman both subbed, so thanks. I hope you guys enjoy the other shows that we do over here. Sully Blues says she's in orbit.
That's probably when that was frozen or something.
The Batman says, so Maddy, is Ronan going down in the LEM? I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means either.
Harvey says, I see him posting on Tim Pool's videos all the time. Ted Cruz has mega moments sometime, and the breakdown with Birkenhoff over there lives under the senatorial rule of Ted Cruz, so Seawall swaps to the Panzer IV. Wyatt says Matt could be on Tim Pool's show. Yeah, we don't know what goes on with that one. The Batman says that we all live in a yellow submarine.
Yeah, he likes to torture me with that song constantly.
Harvey says, please run, get out of that bubble. Sully says, how is AOC a real thing? I mean, what in the... The Batman says, J. Edgar, AOC looks like she ran face first into a wall. Hey, that's my future wife you're talking about there. I'll fight a guy. Still don't know what the LEM is. Sully says...
Lunar Excursion Module. He typed it in the chat.
Oh, I'm not that far down yet. Sully says, mostly peaceful though, right? Probably talking about the beheadings.
Mm-hmm.
Knives of peace. White says, of course, mostly as the fire burns. Wow, you guys are busy tonight. Sully says, that was an odd image. Wax my tranny balls, my weird tranny balls. There is a time delay over on Twitch. Yeah, everybody's got a different timing for this, but multi-streaming off of there keeps my eggs not all in one basket, so.
Yep.
That's, Sully says, Google is into my porn addiction. It's getting weird. Channel Nazi News is what the Batman has to say.
Yep.
Spartan
we came
is
up
here.
with all kinds of euphemisms and nicknames for CNN.
Spartan is here. Says, I hate myself for not getting into the billionaire statues. Must be status. Sully says, God forbid you financially budget your expenses. Seawall points out a good thing, and I pointed this out in the morning show. People who rely on tax returns to cover their bills are financially irresponsible. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And don't let your savings account be the government, because they suck at everything. Nephilim says, the wrong color, what? That was the return, was the wrong color. It was red instead of black. Welcome on in, Nephilim. Let's see. What else do we got here? If you're banking on a tax return for sustainability, then you're bad with money, which is the same thing that we said. And then Harvey equated how much more I get in my paycheck every year. I think that would be closer to... It's more than 2,400 because it's there are 52 weeks in a year, not 48. So what would that be? Another 2,600? Not 2,400? Watching trains go by is in here. It says lifestyle determines what people think is a necessity. Survival dictates what is actually a necessity. Yeah, it's the same thing like John over on the Generational Gap says. If you want to know what your rights are, go and get away from society and live out in the woods. You'll find out what your rights are.
Yeah.
Seawall says he spies someone photobombing the guest.
Yeah, that's my husband.
Yeah. There's the Lunar Excursion module.
Yeah.
And I think watching trains go by will get the last word here before we circle back after election news, and says, I won't lie, AOC is kind of hot in that end of the night, kind of trashy and doesn't care kind of way. Well, she was a bartender. But congrats on your future wife, Edgar. Well, she's dumb, but she's kind of hot.
Yeah,
I've been running that troll since she first won the primary. And it drives a lot of people nuts. She's not actually even my type, but I just, as much as I womanized when I was younger, it just, people expect that kind of thing out of me, and I've been running with it ever since she got the primary.
She's one of those politicians that if you catch her outside the political sphere just to hang out and goof off with and have fun with and not talk politics, she'd probably be a really cool person. I mean, she does have every once in a while she does a joke. She's got a really good sense of humor. But, you know, it's just the politics, man. Every time she opens her mouth, stupid just kind of falls out just naturally.
All right, and we will circle back to catch up with more of the live chat here, but we got to talk about what's going on in the news here, because tomorrow is the big day. Tomorrow is the day where we're going to sit and find out what is actually going on for the presidency coming up in the next 4 years, or at least we'll get a general idea out of this, and we don't have to hear political campaign ads every 30 seconds on fucking YouTube if we don't have the ad blocker on.
Right?
So, first thing I'm going to ask you here is, what do you think is going to come out of the election, presidency, House, and Senate?
The way it's looking, if you look at what was it that I did the report on this morning? The nonpartisan reports out there, it looks like the Dems are going to gain at least 10 seats and maintain their majority in the House. It looks like of those 10 seats, 8 are going to be, lost by Republicans. Mm-hmm. So they're going to have even more Democrats in the House. There's some people that are running unopposed because the incumbent they're retiring. So you've got at least, I don't know how many legislators are retiring on the Republican side. So that has something to do with it. A couple of sources that I found earlier today said dozens.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting. So there's going to be a major changing of the guard from old blood to new blood. And as far as the presidency is concerned, I'm going to kind of go out on a limb here and say I think the polls, just like last time, are going to be wrong. Mainly because a lot of people are afraid to come forward and say whether or not they're voting for Trump because of the volatile political climate right now and everything that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're waiting till they go to the booth to cast their votes. They're not telling anybody who they're voting for. So a lot of these polls aren't accurate, mainly because of people that are fearful to come out and say that I'm voting for Trump, because he's been demonized, he's been drugged, he's been misquoted, and he's been taken out of context so many times that anybody that says they're a Trump supporter automatically gets hounded, not only in social media, but in real life. And, has Trump exaggerated? Yes.
Oh,
Has
yeah.
he been caught in lies? Yes, he has. Has he contradicted his own stories? Several times. I mean, I'm not saying the man is the most truthful person on the earth. He's not. But he has accomplished a lot in his time in office, even fighting against Congress. He has gotten a lot passed. He has gotten a lot accomplished, a lot more accomplished than a lot of people that have come before him.
Right.
And this is something that the left doesn't want to admit. And then you look at the left and you see Joe, who half the time can't remember what he's running for, what state he's in, what he's saying, for that matter.
Come on,
everybody
man.
makes jokes, right? Everybody makes jokes, but I mean, it's like when you say I'm running for Senate, and if you don't like me, you can vote for the other Biden, dude. You have lucidity problems. I'm just saying. And when you mistake your sister for your wife, you either got something really weird going on at your house, or you have some sort of dementia going on there.
Well, don't judge other cultures. I mean, look at what goes on in the Omar house.
Well, what was that line from the Rocky Horror Picture Show? Incest is best. Put your brother to the test.
I don't know. That's a movie, which means I've never seen it.
It's okay.
I've only
I'm
seen
sure
like
some
5
people
movies
in
in
the
my
chat have
life.
seen it. It was a midnight. It was one of those midnight movies where it was just made fun of constantly. People would shout lines at the movie, and it was one heck. You had to be there to experience it. It was great. It's funny, but yeah, it's. They keep trying to paint the Republicans in this dark light, but the more they try and uncover all the stuff they think the Republicans are doing, the more they're outing themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Which is like this wonderful display of irony and cognitive dissonance all at the same time. It's like every time you say so and so did this and this is why, somebody digs deeper and finds, oh, wait a minute, that was a Democrat.
Well, and I mean, I actually did, because I wasn't going to vote for any president this coming election. I had no intention to do so because, well, Joe Biden and Howie Hawkins, I'm pretty sure that's pretty obvious at this point.
Yeah.
And when it went along further on, I mean, I've had my differences with Jo Jorgensen and her campaign. I've been very quiet about them because I don't want a higher up from the campaign to see me lashing out against Jorgensen, and then it costs my co-host her job.
Oh, yeah.
I've been very quiet about my differences with Jo Jorgensen. I know that Elaine would respect my opinions on that. It's just I don't want it to cost her. She's got a very good job in that. So I've been very quiet about that, and I will continue to do so until after Election Day.
Yeah.
And as far as Trump goes, I mean, yes, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was a good thing. Yes, he got a lot of stuff done. But on the other side of that, he renewed the Patriot Act, which that was the one that said, no, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And he spent like a drunken sailor throughout his entire presidency. He spent and he spent and he spent. And a lot of that was the omnibuses that were coming back to him, which he promised he was never going to sign again. And he went back and signed them again. He just signed another one a few days ago. But the other side of it to me, though, on that is I know that Pelosi is there primed and ready to hold the federal workers hostage to get that omnibus signed and cause Trump the re-election bid.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
To me, I have gotten to this point, especially over these past 4 years, that I am of the staunch belief that in order to run for any office of the government, you need to take a competency test, a test on the Constitution, and have a psych evaluation. Because if you're going to run our country, in my opinion, you need to be of sound mind first. You need to know the Constitution in order to legislate the damn thing. Excuse my English. And you need to be competent enough to do the job. And Pelosi and Schumer and all these people that are very vocal against Trump, it's like every time they open their mouth, I'm like, why are you still in Congress? Why are you still running? Obviously, you forgot how the Constitution works.
Because some people did something.
Right? I was like, ugh.
So, and I look at the House and I see... Well, you've talked about the shy Trump voter off of this here, and keep in mind the fact that Trump is on the ballot this time, where the blue wave flipped.
Yeah.
He wasn't on the ballot, so people weren't going out excited to vote for Trump. And Trump was, people were going out voting for him in record numbers when he was running unopposed after he knocked Bill Weld and that god-awful Joe Walsh, who for whatever reason follows me on Twitter, by the way. After he knocked both of them out, people were still turning out in record numbers to vote in the primary for Trump. So I do think that there's going to be an effect of that onto the House. I think the House flips back on a bigger margin than we would think.
I hope so. Because these last 4 years have been a circus.
But for me, the big thing was Tommy Chong when he tweeted out. And I talked with... No, I didn't talk. Because that was after Clint was on. I talked about it on the morning show, and actually I talked about it in my endorsement video. I officially put out an endorsement video. And I said, the left, that's all they want right now. They are drunk on power, and they will do whatever they can to get it. And Tommy Chong tweeted out, hey man, we're going to go out on November 3rd, 2029, and vote Joe Biden in and Trump out. Which everybody jumped on that to meme him about it, but the other side, the rest of the tweet said, and anybody who thinks that they're going to resist the transfer of power out there, man, we're going to bring the power of the federal government against them because we were born to resist dictators.
Okay, show me a dictator in the White House.
Well, and that's just it. Immediately after he said, we're going to bring the full power of the federal government against people who would resist, the next thing he said was, we were born to resist dictators. That sounds awfully dictatorial to me.
Yeah. Like I have a lot of what I'm going to find interesting in particular is southern Florida, Miami-Dade and Broward counties especially, because my family's Cuban. They came from Cuba here for obvious reasons, and Castro. And a lot of the older Cubans they saw this coming a mile away. They saw this when Obama started running, and the first thing he said was, we're going to, redistribute the wealth. They knew what that meant because they had gone through that. And now they're seeing all these other things seeping into our society, into our media, being repeated over and over again. And they're getting scared because they're hearing the same things just said a different way that Fidel said in order for his overthrow of Batista to become successful. And it's a horrific feeling because those of us that learned from the people, because I was born here, so all my family taught me about Cuba, what happened under Batista, the overthrow of Fidel, and by Fidel, and what happened afterwards. And I'm seeing all this happening, And then I'm seeing the younger generation of Cuban people are like, well, we're going to vote Biden. Are you not listening? Do you not see these cues? Did you not pay attention to your parents and your grandparents when they were telling you all this? You're going to vote in the same crap that your grandparents left Cuba to get away from?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's mind-boggling.
Well, and I mean, everybody's jumping out to get in on this too, and both candidates are racing around to get as many rallies in as many states as they can. I mean, Frederica Wilson just got in earlier today, which I wound up trolling somebody. I got to put this tweet up here because you guys are going to think it's hilarious here. I actually got a lefty to come out and say Orange Man bad, and I actually brought the context of it in because we were talking about whether or not it was Frederica Wilson wrote a tweet saying, is it legal for Trump to be going out and campaigning in Air Force One? Which, to be fair, any aircraft that the president is on is Air Force One. It automatically takes that call number.
Mm-hmm.
But as we were going on, and my friend Mac Truck actually got into it too, and talking about Obama boosting his personal wealth up by 3,000% after leaving the presidency and while in the presidency and everything else. And I said, no, Mac, you're wrong. All the rest of that is okay because Barry never golfed, because that was the problem that Bernadette had, was the fact that Trump was out golfing every fucking weekend. And then Bernadette says, nobody says that Obama never golfed. And I said, you shut your mouth. Saint Obama never golfed. It's only the evil orange man. And then Bernadette said, dude, the orange man is evil. Always has been. So I trolled the lefty into saying orange man bad on Twitter.
Oh my God.
I thought that was hilarious. I enjoyed that very, very much.
Yeah, my whole thing is when I start talking to people on Twitter and they'll go, oh, here's another Trumper. And I always respond with, oh, nice assumption there. And then they come back with, what do you mean? I said, I think he's a jackass. I'm not in anybody's camp. Yeah. I'm not one or the other. I'm not going to choose sides. It's like, and I think I tweeted out a couple of days ago that if I actually get more notoriety and I actually start getting to the point where I can consider myself quote unquote famous, I am never going to openly endorse any candidate in any election, because I firmly believe it is not up to me to tell you who to vote for. It's up to you to decide that for yourself by researching the candidates, by seeing if they stand for what you want them to stand for, you know, by looking at their voting records and see if their voting records suit, you know, what you believe in politically and stuff. And it's not my say for you to vote for this guy or that guy. That's your personal choice. You know, and all these celebrities that are so disconnected from reality because they make more money than God at this point, probably, are telling us, you know, oh, you should vote for so. No, I'm not going to vote for so-and-so just because you tell me to.
Well, that's a nice transition here, because I've got another video that was worthy of epic cringe that happened just yesterday, in fact. So let's see what Lady Gaga had to say about this election.
Oh, her.
Yes, her.
Hey, this is Lady Gaga. I'm voting for America, which means I'm voting for Joe Biden. And if you live in Minnesota, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Michigan, Florida, or Arizona, I encourage you to vote. And if you have a friend that lives there, tell them to vote. I'm going to be in one of these states tomorrow. Guess which one I'll be in? Hint, I used to live there. Cheers to the 2020 election.
So that's what that had to sound like. And spoiler alert, it was Pennsylvania that she wound up being in. But of course, she gets up in the camo, and whatever the hell those boots were, takes one drink out of a beer, crushes and throws it on the ground in front of an $80,000 F-350.
Right, because, you know, alcohol abuse. This is what a redneck looks like, is basically what she was telling me in that video. Hey, fellow rednecks, Hello, fellow rednecks. Vote for Biden. Right? No, I don't care.
Well, it probably has about the same transparency of, hello, husband. I like beer. Would you like a beer?
Yeah. I saw that video and I cringed so hard. I'm like, why do they have to? Why do they try so hard when they just can't relate to us anymore? They it astounds me because I'm watching the video going, can you not do that? That is not what rednecks look like. Can you not? Oh, the pandering.
The boots were just. I don't know what was going on with those boots. I have no idea.
This is the same woman who wore a beef dress.
You know, Ron pointed that out this morning too on the morning show too, with the beef dress. And
Yeah.
I mean, in 2017, when Lady Gaga was going to be singing the national anthem and doing, or I'm sorry, not the national anthem, doing the halftime show at the Super Bowl that year, a lot of people were concerned that she was going to go out and get all social justicey and be anti-Trump left and right, this and that. And I, at the time, I was like, that's not Lady Gaga's message. She's always been about inclusion. That's always how she treated all of her fans, who she called the monsters because they were supposed to be the outcasts from society, even though most of them were the manufactured mean girls that you saw from that movie, which I have seen, and I do love that movie. I don't care what Stephen Ignoramus has to say about that. But, I mean, her message has always been inclusion, and now she's deep-throated the blue Trump derangement syndrome pill so hard that now she is out at excluding and othering people the same way that everybody else has been.
Yep. Eventually, they all take the stupid pills.
One of the things that we've been seeing up off of this is with all the rallies that they've been rushing out to try and get to today, or these last couple days, is that in 2 states, Florida and Minnesota, they were having dueling rallies in Florida at the same exact time they were having their rallies. And then just a couple days ago in Minnesota, Biden was having a rally at 3:30 in the afternoon so he could get off and go to the early bird special, and then Trump was having his at 5.
Yeah.
But they kept, and this tells you all that you need to know about the 2 rallies here. If you go back to try and look that up, if you try and Google Minnesota rallies at this time, all you see is a wall of how much Trump complained about the fact that Minnesota capped him at 250 people to his rally. There's not word one about Biden's rally that was an hour and a half earlier. There is not word one about Biden's rally, which was amazing because everybody got frustrated with the fact that they couldn't go to Trump's rally, and they went over and they photobombed Biden's rally. Which was, and I'm familiar with the area because it's actually the Rochester is one of the big cities near where I grew up, so it was my sister used to hang out there. I didn't. I usually went more towards Eau Claire, but my sister used to go and hang out over in Rochester, and between where Biden's rally was and where Trump's rally was only like 45 minutes away from each other.
Yeah.
So everybody went out and honked the horns at Biden's rally.
The staggering differences in between the 2 rallies is just, oh God, it's almost comical. And then it's like, if Biden goes to here's the other rhetoric that makes me eye roll. If Biden has a rally, it's a rally. If Trump has a rally, it's a super spreader event.
Oh yeah.
Don't pay no attention to the fact that it's already been reported that he hands out sanitizers and masks and gloves at these events. It's a super spreader event.
Well, and they have the cars too, and I've never understood that because what's the easiest place to hide a weapon if you're going to go into something?
Yeah.
But of course, Biden had to put out this tone-deaf tweet out here with a parking lot out there, and it says, "Hey, who let all these people into my basement?" Because everyone's making fun of him for the fact that he's stayed in his basement for almost this entire election cycle.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you also have to ask yourself, just like whenever it's evident when our dear president tweets something, and it's evident when one of his staffers does it, because the tone of the tweet is completely different.
It is.
And but my question is the same one for Biden. How many of those are his tweets, and how many of those are tweets his staffers are doing? Because we know they're not all his.
Yeah, I know.
I just want to know what percentage of those are actually his tweets.
Well, what percentage of them are anybody's tweets? I actually know a little bit about how the Twitter game goes with that because the person who's usually sitting on that side of the screen, well, we're both on the same side of the screen right now, but the person who's usually sitting on your side of the screen is a social media director for a campaign.
Yep.
So I've seen the way that some of this works and how they function this, how they work it.
Yeah.
I've got to listen to stories of how that all works on the inside. And no, it's not always that the candidate is making the tweets. It usually is a staffer that's making the initial tweets, but the candidate is the one that's doing the liking and the retweeting.
Oh, yeah. And there was one, I think the name of the channel is Nerd Writer. It was soon after he got elected. He broke down the language in the Trump tweets so a regular layman person could tell the difference between Trump tweeting it out and a staffer doing it. And it was a really interesting video.
It is. Sorry, I've been educating everyone in the chat of what we've got coming on tomorrow where I'm taking calls.
Yep.
Well, the thing with the drive-in rallies, too, is, I mean, it's very easy to skew what the numbers look like on the drive-in rallies because they can go out to Enterprise and rent a bunch of cars and park them out there and say, oh, look at all the people that went to Biden's rally, too. So a lot of this is a lot of psyop for that.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of it has to be staged. And I've been thinking, and I really don't particularly like either candidate, but I've been saying this a lot on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Once it started becoming evident that Biden was showing signs of dementia, keeping him in the public eye, making him do these things, and having him go on this campaign trail, in my opinion, is akin to elderly abuse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been a common one that's been going on around there. Have you seen these stupid-ass caravans?
Yes. I reported on those on my blog today.
Oh, why would you do that? I mean, you're asking for trouble at this point.
Yeah, they are. They are. And it's already been reported that the one that surrounded the Biden bus, the one car that was seen swerving in the video, was actually driven by a Biden staffer.
Yes. Oh yeah. No,
And
that's well known at this point.
Yeah, and the Bronx Bridge incident happened after the cops were blocking that particular caravan from entering the city. So they were on one end of the bridge, keeping the Trumpers from coming in.
Mm-hmm.
So they decided to stay on the bridge and act like total jackasses.
Well, and I mean, I'm not completely against the fact that they're assembling peacefully. And I know that a lot of people have come out there and made the ties to ISIS over this. I mean, this is, for the most part, a good idea, except for the fact that they're taking up all the lanes of traffic and then slowing it down on the same routes that emergency vehicles take.
Yeah.
So I've got, they're free to protest, and they're free to do so, and the road is a public space.
Just don't block traffic.
But there's so many of them that they're blocking traffic for miles. Mm-hmm. And yes, I know Trump supporters, and they will be respectful. If an emergency vehicle comes by and needs to get through, but it's going to take extra time for them to all get out of the way, realize what's going on, and coordinate their getting out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
But you brought up the interesting point because of the car that was swerving. We talked about this. I talked about it on my morning show, and then we talked about it again over on Steven's morning show as well, because the FBI is investigating the truck in the incident, the pickup truck that was along with that, for attempted homicide on the driver of the white crossover SUV. Now, a Twitter personality, and I forget what it was that she actually does, but a Twitter personality put out the video because she was driving in this and called it a crime against the white vehicle. But what she failed to realize is the fact that from the angle that we're seeing here, it's actually pretty obvious that the white crossover SUV was the aggressor in this. Let's have a look at this.
Mm-hmm. Yep, because I had to go back and watch the video to make sure I was describing what was in the video accurately for my post earlier today.
It is.
Yeah, you see the truck advance going by the bus, and then you see the crossover swerve into the truck's lane.
All right, and that's what we're about to watch right now, because that's actually that's to the point that's about to happen. So
yeah.
I'm sure some of you would love. Oh, shit! Look at that.
All right, Let's back that up.
You would love. You would love.
No, go forward a little more. I mean, you can see right there, and I did the same thing this morning too, pointed at the screen like anybody can see what the hell's going out there. But you can see right there where the tires are on the crossover. The crossover is in the far right lane where the pickup was driving, not the other way around where the pickup was crossing over into the center lane. This is clear aggression on the part of the crossover SUV, which it is found was being driven by a Biden staffer.
Yep. And furthermore, the FBI over there is now officially investigating that particular incident.
Yeah, it's I just mentioned that it's attempted homicide is what they're investigating for.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean you can see clear as day the still that I've got up there right now that the crossover's tires are over the white line into the pickup truck.
Mm-hmm.
Not the other way around.
Nope.
But they're going to come and run with this narrative and try and say that it was the Trumpsters that were coming out and causing the aggression and pushing back against people.
Yeah.
And
always with the gaslighting and the goalpost moving.
And calling them ISIS because, well, they are kind of religiously zealots. Don't quote me as saying that they're not, because they are.
Not all of them now. They're not a monolith.
Fair point.
I mean, there are people from all walks of life that that support Trump, and there's always two different types of people that campaign for their person: the people that are quiet and peaceful and respectful, and then you got the idiots that are yelling at everybody and doing the caravans, and those are the ones that get put in the media more often than the other ones, because the other ones are like, well, I'm just going to vote for my person, and I'm just going to sit over here, and I'm going to be nice and quiet and respectful, and because of, my upbringing, I have no problems with people peacefully protesting and airing their grievances in a peaceful way.
Yeah.
When you cross that line from protesting to rioting or blocking traffic or doing things of that nature and still calling it a protest, you're now being a nuisance.
Mm-hmm.
And and I don't care what side of the political spectrum you're on, if you think blocking traffic is going to get your point across, the only thing you look like to me is a blithering idiot.
That's a fair point. And I was always entertained by the ones that do it in Milwaukee, because they go to the same place every time when they try to block traffic in Milwaukee, and it is right after the Marquette interchange going north on 43. It's always the northbound lane. It's always on 43. And Schneider trucks drive there. And Schneider trucks have an abysmal safety record. I would not want to be driving where Schneider trucks drive. That is not where I would want to be blocking traffic.
Well, it's like when the riots first started happening and the stuff in Seattle was going on with Chaz Chop or whatever they ended up calling it. I guess it was Chop, I guess. A lot of the trucking companies, especially Werner, because my husband drives for Werner, there were groups online, trucking groups online, that said they were going to refuse to go to these cities that weren't going to protect their citizens, because if they're not taking time to protect their citizens, then the drivers of these trucks don't feel safe and don't expect them to stop, because they don't want another incident like the Rodney King riot where the guy got drug out of his truck and basically beat to death.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care who you are, if you think you can stand in front of, an 80,000-pound vehicle going 50 miles an hour and stop the truck, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
I don't care what vehicle you're in, you ain't walking away from that.
All right. I want to and this is the last thing I want to talk about with this before we move on, because I've got plenty of election news that I'm going to be talking about tomorrow. I am going to be so sick of this election by midnight tomorrow. It's not even funny. But I wanted to take some time and I wanted to get your take on how some of these third-party contenders are affecting things. Now, I've already taken from my co-host the tweet pointing out that Jo Jorgensen is ahead and has beat the spread in every state that she's reporting in so far in early voting. So she's above 3% in Minnesota. She's above 5% in Pennsylvania. She's beat the spread in all of this. But how do you think Jorgensen and the campaign that she's running this year affects the way that the election's going to turn out?
I think there are going to be some votes that are going to be swinging her way. And if they do swing her way, I would probably venture to guess those are people that were on the fence as to whether or not they were going to vote for either Trump or Biden. And when they see her and they've done enough research about her and stuff, they're probably going to go, well, okay, we've got these two evils and her. Okay, I'll go for her because she don't seem as bad as the other two.
Indeed.
Because this is the same election as it was 4 years ago. The lesser of two evils.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is you don't have a lesser of the two evils of the two party candidates because both of them are, insufferable in their own ways. And then you have Joe Jorgensen, which I have a couple of friends on Twitter that have been tweeting out memes left and right and campaigning for her on Twitter and Facebook. And every time I follow them somewhere, they're doing the same thing. I mean, I got to give them credit. They're campaigning for her all out. They are all out. And, I give, props where they're due. They're giving it the old college try. And I'm like, okay, this is good. And then I started looking into some of the stuff she was for and some of the stuff she was against. And I'm like, oh, that open borders thing. Yikes.
Yeah.
That's all it is. That's always, like, yikes. That's all I'm going to say on that one because if you want to know how well open borders works, look over at the European Union and see how well they're faring. That's all I have to say.
Fair point. Now I'm going to throw out another name and see how you think that this person is affecting things, but I fear that you're about to say, who? And that's going to be Howie Hawkins. How do you think that one's rolling things out?
I have not heard of him. I have no clue who he is.
He is the spiritual Green Party successor to hippie grandma.
Oh, God.
So yes, the Green Party does have 50 state ballot access this year, but nobody's heard about him.
Yeah, well, that's the problem because you get drowned out by the two main parties, which is the sad state of affairs. This wasn't supposed to be a two-party system, but you just get the same two parties in the media all the time.
What about the birthday party? Who has 37 state ballot access this year?
Lord. Watching trains go by. Howie. They did the same thing when Carter ran. Jimmy who? That was, Jimmy. So Jimmy Carter was running for president. Nobody knew who Carter was. It's Jimmy who? Who's that?
That's a little bit before my time, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah. That was when he first popped on the scene, nobody knew who Jimmy Carter was. Nobody. And when he ran for president, that was the question. I mean, it was all over the media. Jimmy who? Yeah, that became his unofficial campaign slogan. Jimmy who? Jimmy, because nobody knew who he was.
I was born under Reagan. 1984.
I was born in 73, so I've seen plenty of presidents in my time. Some that were okay, some that were and some that were like, why did we vote this idiot in?
I think I've said that about every president in my lifetime that I was conscious for.
Jimmy Carter was a split decision. I wasn't old enough to vote at the time, I don't think. But I kept remembering, because that's when I started paying a half-hearted attention to what was going on. And his domestic policy here in the U.S. wasn't that great. He was more of a statesman, a negotiator. He would have been a better ambassador to an administration than he would have been a president, because his foreign policies were good. He was an excellent statesman. But when it came to anything having to do with United States policy, the boy was just a lost ball in high weeds.
Well, and let's not forget the fact that he will be alive until the very last guinea worm has deceased.
Yeah, he's just hanging in there, boy. He is hanging in there.
But, I mean, going back to the topic at hand here, where do you see, I mean, do you think Kanye is going to take a proportion of the vote somewhere? I know a lot of people were pissed about the fact that he was even running. We got to listen to that nice, that Get Fucked song that nice lady wrote.
Right? I think if he gets any votes, it'll be like trolling votes, joke votes. Like, what the hell? It's Kanye. Check.
I think there is a good possibility that he takes a fairly substantial portion of the black vote.
He might. And then, jokingly, I wouldn't be surprised if he popped on stage and go, I know you the president, but give me a minute. Give me a minute. This guy over here was the best candidate on the trail.
Well, that's what I can't do any more election politics because I'm going to do it for 10 hours straight tomorrow. And I will be
Yeah.
taking calls, like I said, through that. So I put the Discord link in the chat there. So make sure you guys get into the Discord so I can take your calls here. I've got some guests that are going to be coming on through that there. But we got to check in with the live chat and see what they're doing. Make sure they're not killing each other here. And we are way behind time off this one, but I knew that this was going to be just a massive topic given what we've got going on here. Let's see. They're making fun of me over the fact that I've never seen the Rocky Horror Picture Show, but I've not seen a lot of movies, so.
Yep.
Let's see. Watching Trains Go By says I'm laying odds that 50 Cent crawled back, tapped it a little more, promised to vote Biden, but he's going to be alone in the booth with his cell phone to troll Chelsea later when the time is right. Harvey watched Rocky Horror in Vegas. Ronan says no Rocky Horror, and apparently I'm a virgin because of it.
Yep. Mm-hmm. That's the title when you've never seen it.
Spartan says JoJo is for open borders. I'm against it. Open borders is basically against having a country. Yeah, we talked a bit about that just now.
Yep.
Spartan says Biden being against guns should disqualify him from running. Well, that would disqualify a lot of people if that was the truth. Consciousness 33 says goodbye Nancy, go back to your witch cult. That's a new name in here. Welcome on in. Thanks for hanging out with us. Watching Trains Go By is apparently not sleeping for 3 days.
He put a lot of coffee in the chat.
Must be a lot of trains going by. The Batman says people in Maddy's Discord learned a lot about Cuba from Maddy. Let's see. What else do we have here? I want to get some questions in here. Silence Redcoat. Make America British Again from the Batman.
Yeah, it's one of my UK friends.
Nacho Dragon says Lil Wayne told me to vote for Trump. Yeah, that was a bizarre one. I didn't even get that into the topics list today, but yeah, that whole bizarre meeting between Lil Wayne and Trump. It's amazing, don't get me wrong, but that was just bizarre to see.
Oh yeah, that was something I wasn't expecting.
Harvey says, well, she convinced me, got to go vote for Biden. Okay, that was with the Lady Gaga thing. So we just lost Harvey's vote.
Yeah.
Post Jazz is here. I'm telling Steven. I forget what it was that I said over there, but I said that I didn't care what. Oh, yeah, it was because I said that I watched. Yeah, Steven was doing a Halloween live stream, and I made a quote from Mean Girls, and he didn't know what I was talking about. And I unironically love that movie. I don't care. Nacho is asking if I'm taking callers. I'm not taking callers tonight. I will be taking callers tomorrow. So make sure you get into the Discord server, which I linked up in the chat, and come hang out with us. That's where I will be taking the calls. So come on in and hang out with us. The Batman wants to know if I'll be tomorrow, or that if I am tomorrow. I am indeed tomorrow.
I do have to warn you, he is the purveyor of dad jokes.
That's fine.
Okay.
Let's see. CNN says the stock market has already crashed, or decided that Biden will win, that the Democrats will take the Senate and keep the House. I don't know about that. Ronan says, got your Discord. If you ever need some help with research, let Maddy know or DM me. Well, yeah, I've got articles worth investigating. I read that, and I usually use that to shape my morning shows, so make sure if you've got something, put it in there. Try to be green check verified if possible, but otherwise I'll usually look and find stuff that is NewsGuard verified. So apparently Spartan is cleaning toilets for Ron. I don't know what's going on with that. That's a little bit odd. Ron says Wisconsin, Texas, Florida, Pennsylvania are in the mix. I am concerned that Texas may be really close. If more uninformed younger people vote their feels. The Batman says open borders is why we're leaving the EU, among other things. I've got a friend that's, I think he's in, his accent sounds like Londonish. I don't know. I've never even seen the guy's name. I don't even know what his name is, but he's a friend of mine from the Deplorable Batcave, and he's over there too. So I've learned a little bit about European politics from him. Post Jazz says the Greens Party's purpose was to make third-party voters seem loony. Let's see. I heard a lot of the grin will win when Carter ran. That's interesting. Ron says Carter has a share of corrupt administration members, as most cabinets do. And I think watching trains go by will get the last word on this particular segment, and then we'll check back for more. He says Scott Adams had a theory that by stalling the announcement of who won could stave off some violence. If everyone is in limbo, only the real diehards will rampage, while many wait, wondering what to do. And that's absolutely true. We could see that as well. Ron says Nate Silver of 538 is getting nervous. He posted an opinion article this afternoon suggesting that there's still a possibility of Trump. So we will circle back to that. We've got a couple things to talk about with these riots here and a couple more things to go along with. But we are running up on time, so we're going to keep this as abbreviated as humanly possible for this. First thing is first. Looking into Philadelphia this past week on Monday, actually, while we were on the air, Walter Wallace was shot by police. Now, initial reports say that Wallace was waving a knife and charging at police. I have seen the video. Susan Wojcicki tells me I cannot play the video on YouTube because that will end my stream and my career. Probably not my career, but definitely my stream. But from the facts that we know at this point so far, Walter Wallace Jr. was involved in a domestic dispute. Now, the family is saying that he was having mental health issues at the time, and a social worker should have come out to take care of this rather than the police. The video came up, a grainy cell phone video, because of course it was a grainy cell phone video, showing the last minutes of the confrontation, where police had guns drawn, were telling Wallace to drop the knife. Wallace charged at police and was immediately shot. He survived the initial shooting but died later on in the hospital. And of course, by that night, Philadelphia was up in riots. So what have you seen on this so far? Uh-oh, I have no audio. Hold on. I lost your audio. Pull your microphone down.
There we go. Can
All
you hear
right.
me now?
Yes.
Dummy, I boomered. Okay. From the research I did when I actually did a blog post on this there was a total of 14 shots fired.
Mm-hmm.
Once the smoke cleared, 10 of those rounds actually hit him. The mother is reported as saying that she actually called the ambulance.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing is that 3 times prior during that day, before she called the ambulance, the police had already been called out on 3 separate occasions for Wallace for the issues that he was having. There were cries of, why didn't he use a taser? And that was because Police Commissioner Daniel Outlaw has been trying to get more funding for tasers. They didn't have enough funding for all the officers to have non-lethal ordnance. In that
Boy, why does that story sound familiar? Oh, wait, it came from out of Kenosha, too, because they had just passed a budget resolution to get body cams, and we're supposed to get them in January of 2021.
Yep. Hours after the incident, we know that they took this. They started with the protest, and it broke out into a riot. 30 officers were wounded.
Mm-hmm.
One was actually set on fire. They were throwing everything from bricks to other debris at the crowd. The officers were armed with batons trying to calm him down. The live stream, which was pretty much blacked out later on, started at 12:50 a.m. that particular night.
Mm-hmm.
And since it continued on to the next day, the National Guard got called out to put an end to all the riots. Now, here's something that would harken back to another police shooting. Wallace's father was quoted as saying, "They are not helping my family. They are showing disrespect. Stop this violence and chaos."
Mm-hmm. And they didn't.
And Wallace's uncle said, "I do not want my city tore down. We do not need that. Don't do this in the name of my nephew, because this is not what he would have wanted." This is kind of paraphrasing the same thing that George Floyd's parents and family were saying when people were rioting in Floyd's name. Don't do this in my son's name. He wouldn't want this. And they're doing it anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're getting to this point here where it is, and I don't buy what anybody's saying that this is about the shooting or anything else. This is people getting an excuse to go out and, for lack of a better term, get that free shit. And they've come out and said that it's reparations.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not only that. If you look at, the current rhetoric going on about reparations and the Oppression Olympics and things of that nature, you couple it with these man bite dog events, because the only thing that we're seeing in terms of police shooting or police brutality is police against black people. It's only one-sided. You never really see anything pushed to the mainstream and kept in the light about any other ethnicity or skin color being treated the same way by cops. It's just black people all the time being highlighted in the media. And then you compound that with the lockdowns that started in March and people being sequestered in their homes and not being allowed to go anywhere. And if they go somewhere, they can, they have to be masked up and stuff. A lot of people don't respond well to forced sequestering in their homes. You learn a lot about the people you live with when you're in lockdown. And this creates a lot of stress, a lot of interpersonal stress with the people in the house, and this builds up. So you couple this with what the mainstream media has been coming out and their bias and only reporting one side of the police brutality issue in regards to it being against black people. You take the BLM movement and add that to it. You add Antifa to it. And then you add, these people constantly changing goalposts as to what they're protesting for. And you have a powder keg that has been lit and is continually exploding. And now these people, in my opinion, are just destroying stuff just to destroy stuff.
Yeah. And I saw some of that with Kenosha too. I mean, walking around through that little car dealership was just so surreal to me. And I walked through the carnage of it. I saw a nice RX-7 that was such a shame to see destroyed, because those little Wankel engines are so rare.
Yeah.
Those little rotary engines. And to see another one just lost to us in that manner.
Yeah. I mean, it's just destruction for the sheer, purpose of destroying something. It's stupid. There's no reason why these riots should be happening. There really isn't. All this destruction isn't necessary. And they're doing it in their own neighborhoods. They're doing it in their own towns. And the only thing that is going to happen, and it already happened in Minnesota after George Floyd and those riots, when the business owners realize that a lot of these governors and mayors don't care about the businesses that they say they cared about, because they did nothing to protect these businesses during the riot. And they're packing up their businesses and they're leaving these cities and towns to go somewhere else, rebuild and reestablish their business somewhere else.
Oh yeah, that one dude in Minneapolis, the firefighter that spent his life serving the community. Yeah. He was a black dude. He spent his entire career serving the Minneapolis area on the fire department, got a great pension out of it, had a great retirement savings bought up, and he lived out his dream. He bought a sports bar. And he had to delay the opening because of COVID. And then once he finally got the green light that he could start opening it back up, not only did they smash it up one night and he went in to start cleaning up, but they burned it to the ground the next night after he cleaned it all up the second time.
Yeah.
That guy is probably going to get, and he got a bunch of GoFundMe money that he could go back and, he's got enough money from GoFundMe that he can open up a sports bar. But I guarantee it's going to be in La Crosse, not Minneapolis.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't rebuild there. It was like the same thing that happened with Ferguson. They're tearing down, sole proprietorships and stuff in their own community. And at the same time, they're complaining that, they don't get a break. Well, the people in your community that got a break, that are the same, they have the same melanin level as you just tore their stuff up.
Yeah.
And you're wondering why they're angry that you busted their shop up. I mean, it should be obvious. They, blood, sweat, and tears to save up this money to get these loans to open this business, to finally get the business in the black. Here comes this thing that happened, and the first thing you do is you're destroying their business. I'd be angry too.
Yeah, and everybody going into this was out for blood too. I've actually got the video. Elijah Schaefer from The Blaze went into a Target to actually see if he could get a takeoff of some of this, and they beat him mercilessly over it. And he went back and he started reporting again. Let's see what that looked like.
So as you can see, it's kind of hard for me to talk right now because I got jumped inside of a Five Below that's currently being ransacked and completely looted. As you see to my left right here, this is an Eye Encounters store. We have an amazing nail spa, and also right over here, there's a Walmart that's been completely gutted. We are here across the river in Philadelphia, right by a Chick-fil-A. What happened was I just went into the Five Below to just see what was going on with some of the looting, and I was jumped by the Black Lives Matter protesters who immediately started punching and kicking me. One of them punched me directly right in the lip. I had to go to the hospital, I think, to get stitches in this lip because it's just absolutely painful. But this is what's happening in the current state over the killing of Walter Wallace Jr. the other night.
This guy... All right, that's enough out of you, Elijah. I mean, this guy got up and went in to the belly of the beast and got his teeth knocked in, and he got out and continued reporting the news.
Yeah.
All bloodied up and ready to go.
Yep. I mean, I'd like to see any mainstream media person do that. You won't see them do that because, as soon as they get blood on their blazer, they're panicking.
Maybe Jim Acosta can go in there. Hey, you know what? He could go in there too and pull off his famous line. Hey, look at me. I'm Jim Acosta. Look over here. Look at me.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, yeah, that is the big important part of this, is the fact that, yes, they're doing this with their own neighborhoods. This is... And right before the election, that was one of the big questions that came up off of this, is what effect is this going to have on the election that is coming up in just tomorrow? So a week before the election, now they're doing the same thing that has been driving suburban women into the arms of Trump all summer.
Yeah. You have people boarding up their business windows, people getting ready for the worst in neighborhoods and stuff, and all over an election.
In a state that, I mean, that's the biggest, the hardest part about this too, is the fact that Pennsylvania is in play, and it is a must-win for both candidates to get all of this out here. Pennsylvania needs to be won.
Yeah.
And now they're coming out here and destroying it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and it's like what gets me is, especially during, I saw snippets of the debate, because listening to people talk over each other, in my opinion, is not a debate. I miss the old structured debates where they had a set amount of time to answer and the other person had to shut up and they were respectable enough to do that. Because I used to watch those debates, and those debates were good. What goes on nowadays is not a debate. It's they ask the question, and then you listen to them talk over each other for a few minutes.
Oh, you shut up, man.
Yeah, or trying to one-up the other person and all this. And I'm like, they're not debates. They're arguing matches. And when Biden said that Antifa was an idea, I'm like, okay, let's separate something here. Anti-fascism is the belief. Antifa is the organization. And people will argue till they're blue in the face that Antifa isn't organized. But when you compare their tactics to known terror cells, they mirror each other. Because if you get rid of Antifa in one city, one or two more Antifa cells pop up either in that same state or in two different states. Just like a terrorist cell. Mm-hmm. They have online message boards that they coordinate on, where they send each other messages as to where they're going to be. They miraculously pop up in these places within an hour or two of the incident happening. You can't tell me they're not organized, because I don't believe it. I mean, you have the shooting of George Floyd. There were people there within the hour after it happened, already starting stuff. The same thing with Walter Wallace.
Oh, yeah. And even in Kenosha, that happened at 5:30 that night. And they were already out there getting the torches ready by 9.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
You know,
we don't call him George Floyd on this program. He is St. George
oh, St. George.
because that's
Okay.
the level that they elevated him to with the golden casket and everything.
Oh Lord.
He is St. George.
Oh Lord.
That's a Stephen one.
Ah,
All right,
yeah.
let's check in with the live chat here, just catch up with them for a bit here. And we've got just a couple more topics to get to. We might have to skip the Hunter Biden stuff. No, we can't skip the Hunter Biden stuff. All right, we'll figure this out here.
Okay.
But yeah, we're running up against the clock right now, and I promised you 2 hours, and we're just about there. So let's see what the live chat's got going on here. Where did we leave off? Well, we already talked about Carter. Harvey says Lil Wayne didn't surprise me. He said several times that racism doesn't exist. Watching Trains Go By says, Houston, we have a problem. I've never seen that movie either. The Batman says they don't care about Floyd or anyone else they claim to ride for. They just use these deaths as an excuse to cause civil unrest, and some of it as a cover for larceny. Are you familiar with the comedian Owen Benjamin, by any chance?
No.
So he got very, very famous a couple years ago because he put a song out on YouTube that the title is "That N-Word Stole My Bike."
Oh.
And one of his followers was in my live chat this morning when I was talking about this, and they were giving various different acronyms for BLM, and he put in there, "Bike larcenies multiply." Nacho Dragon says, how horrible are the riots if Trump wins tomorrow? They'll be bad.
Oh yeah. Bad.
The Batman says, where the hell were the water cannons? And Watching Trains Go By says, take out the word water. The Batman says, Maddy, Antifa are the modern world's brown shirts. And he says, I'm getting a signal from Ronan Wolf. He's about to exit the LEM. He's lying down. He's been up since 1 a.m. Eastern time. So he's tired. Wow, that's a long time. Well, thanks for coming and hanging out with us. Hopefully we'll hear from you tomorrow with the call-in show. That'll be a lot of fun. Ron says, I wonder if there'll be riots tomorrow. So maybe some of the states will pretend that they don't have all the votes in yet. And what about some of them counting ballots days after the election? So, yeah, we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah. Normally, in election cycles that aren't as loony as this, they have, I believe, 1 week to count all the ballots that are postmarked by the election day.
Well, North Carolina is giving them 9 days to get more in, as long as they're postmarked by the election day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, North Carolina, Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania only gets 3. They tried to pull that shit in Wisconsin, and the Supreme Court said no. The legislature said no.
The reason that they said no, the Supreme Court said no, is because in Wisconsin's case, that was federal law trying to intervene in states' voting laws.
Yeah, and it was the same thing with Pennsylvania and North Carolina, but in the opposite direction.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You know, and to me, it's like, I don't think it should have been extended because it's been the same deadline to vote since, all the wars we've had, the H1N1 that blew through here, and, all the other catastrophes we've had, the election deadline has never been moved. So I don't think they should have moved it this time, in my personal opinion.
No, but they're doing everything they can to get that president unseated.
And to elect Kamala. I mean, Biden. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, then they made the slip again too. By the way, this past week.
Oh, those Freudian slips.
They're definitely Freudian.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
All right, so let's talk briefly about Amy Coney Barrett. We'll circle back and grab some of the rest of the live chat here after this. Let's talk briefly about Amy Coney Barrett. So Amy Coney Barrett is currently hearing her first oral arguments tomorrow. She will be hearing the first arguments before the Supreme Court of Justice. She was confirmed by a 52-48 vote in the Senate, mostly along party lines. Susan Collins being the only person in the Senate to break from party and go over and vote no. So at this point, she is Justice Barrett. And now the seat has been stolen again. She gave a tremendous speech on the South Lawn the night that she was confirmed. She swore herself in that night, and yep, she's on the court now. And of course, now we're hearing all of the various different ways to do this. We're going to pack the courts. I had a New York Times article that I read 2 days ago that said, well, now we need another higher court to determine the constitutionality of the decisions by the Supreme Court. It was from the New York Times, a former newspaper.
Yeah, it's New York Times. I've been reading a lot because I'm starting a docuseries. I started a docuseries on my blog about the bias in media.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been learning a lot about the different arms of the media because we all know we have the New York Times and the New York Post. The New York Times is the darling of the liberals. The New York Post is more conservative.
Mm-hmm.
You have the Washington Post, which is the darling of the liberal side. You have the Wall Street Journal, which is more conservative.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you were to take the two and compare them, you could see the difference in the wording and things of that nature and, how the reporting is done. Goldberg is the person whose book I'm reading right now about bias. He actually used to work with Dan Rather. And here's something people may or may not know. The Oklahoma bombing, when Connie Chung got sent there, Dan Rather was so pissed off that he didn't get to report on it first. And he raised such a stink that Connie got let go and wound up at another network.
Mm-hmm.
They would call him the Dan, as paraphrasing the Don. And he said that it was like he was the head of a mafia. As long as Dan Rather was happy, the network was happy. When Dan wasn't happy, people tended to lose their jobs or get reassigned to something else or be given menial things, because everything revolved around Dan Rather, their glorious little thing. And looking at this Amy Coney Barrett thing, I knew they were going to come up with something other than what they did to Kavanaugh, because they drug Kavanaugh through the dirt with the false accusations and things of that nature. Of that thing I'm not going to mention on your stream because, YouTube doesn't like that.
I don't give a fuck what YouTube likes.
Right?
YouTube doesn't like it when I do this to politicians, and I do it every day.
I do that all the time. Amy Coney Barrett with them, it was the fact that she was Catholic, she was a family woman, that she had adopted children. I saw the stuff unfold on Twitter. Oh my God, did anybody check and see if she legally adopted those kids or if she's neglecting those kids or if she's doing that? I'm like, oh Lord, you can't accuse her of sexual deviance. So now you're going to sit there and say she abuses her kids. This is, now as we're going to lose our, reproductive rights and we're going to lose this and we're going to, excuse me, when in the history of the Supreme Court did they get to make the laws?
Roe versus Wade.
That was a very, but along the lines they have.
You can't argue against that.
No, I can't, and I'm not. But more often than not, that is not their job. That was one of the few times that they actually broke what they were supposed to do. Because in essence, the Supreme Court is there when a law is presented before them to test the constitutionality of said law. That's all they're supposed to do. They're supposed to either uphold that law if it's constitutional or take the law back if it's not. That's their job.
Mm-hmm.
And, they keep thinking that she's going to come in and she's going to get rid of all these laws. And I'm like, do you not realize there's like 8 other justices?
Yeah. And not only that, they actually have to, we saw the case in Pennsylvania with the ballots thing. They tried to get that up to the Supreme Court to get decided on. The Supreme Court wouldn't even hear it. They have to vote to hear it. And there was a case for Roe that came up before the Supreme Court when Kavanaugh first got on. And he sided with Kagan and Ginsburg and Sotomayor and everybody else over on the left said, you know what? I don't even want to hear this. Get this out of my court. We don't want to hear this.
Well, it's when one of the questions they asked Kavanaugh was, because they always try and catch them answering, how they would vote one way or the other. Mm-hmm. And I loved his answer. And he said, if it has already been set as a precedent, I am not going to vote against precedent.
Mm-hmm.
Which was his way of saying that he is not going to try and get rid of Roe versus Wade. Because it's precedent now. And he's not going to vote against that. And I think she's going to be the same way. It doesn't matter that she's Catholic. It doesn't matter that she's adopted children. It doesn't matter what her private life is. I believe she can put all of that aside and judge on the constitutionality of the law that they have voted to preside over.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing, and they're trying to find any other way that they can to try and make sure that this isn't going to be a Trump majority for 30 years.
Yeah.
Anything that they can, anything and above, court packing, rotate justices off the court so they technically are still on a lifetime tenure. Anything that they can do to try and change this, that's what they're pulling for this point. And
Up to and including trying to change the definition of packing the court. I love that one.
Yeah, I love that too. That was great.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about Hunter, because a few weird things popped up in this particular story here, and we're not going to watch any of the videos or anything off of this here, so don't worry about that, because that's going to be another thing that gets us taken down off YouTube, is Hunter getting his massive junk foot stroked by an underage Asian girl.
That would be OnlyFans content.
Maybe I can make some money that way. Hey, here's the Hunter video. But aside from the weird sex stuff that goes along with this, some other things unfolded with this, including an interview with Tony Bobulinski that was over on Tucker that was pretty damning, that went along against Biden. We actually talked about that last week, so I don't want to go too much into that. But Tucker, that very next day, popped up and said, oh, by the way, I had documents sent over to us in a flash drive across the country, and they suddenly went missing, which has been the weirdest part of this entire story.
They found it.
Yeah, they did find them. I've got that article up here too, but a little bit of a timeline of what we went on with this. So Bobulinski was on Monday, and we talked about it then. Then they sent the documents across the country so they could show them on the screen while they were talking with Bobulinski, who's got one of the greatest names in politics, by the way. I love saying Bobulinski. And then the documents went missing. Apparently, they got to the UPS terminal. It was found open, and the flash drive was missing. Tucker didn't come out initially and say that it was UPS, but UPS did jump up and say, no, that was us. No, it was our bad, and we're going to go find it. And then they found it, apparently, on the floor of a sorting facility. It got back in, it was returned, and got out to California to Tucker, and the rest is history. So what did you hear on this story so far?
Oh, I heard all sorts, that it was a conspiracy, that there was a plant, that the plant had stolen the documents, and that why couldn't they have done a courier if these things were, if these documents were so sensitive, why do you have the documents printed out, blah, 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 why couldn't he have just faxed them? There was all sorts of junk going on. That they found the package open. They don't know how the package got open in order for the drive to fall out. It was just an absolute mess. And for the fact that, they weren't going to blame UPS, and UPS stepped forward and went, our bad, bruh, our bad. We're going to find it. It takes a lot for a company to go, it's my bad, bruh. Especially, a well-known company like UPS. To me, that says a lot about the company when they went, okay, yeah, we're the ones that lost it. We're going to find it. We're not going to blame it on anybody else. We're the ones that dropped the ball, and I really gotta give some respect to UPS. I mean, I don't think there was anything nefarious behind it. I don't know what kind of package it was put in precisely, because I didn't do too much research on it, but depending on how packages are handled, we've all gotten a package or two that we have ordered that was more than slightly, more than lightly, roughly handled. I remember ordering some dog food, and the bag was broken inside the box, and the guy goes, "You really don't want to receive this, do you?" I said, "Nah." He goes, "I'll take it back. We'll give you a refund." I said, "Okay." We've all had those packages once or twice.
Yeah.
So it's not like it doesn't happen. I think it was the fact that it was the hard drive that got lost, the little USB drive that got lost, that sparked, the conspiracy community, coming up with all these little weird theories of the mole and the plant or whatever. And it's like, sometimes it's just a simple mistake.
Yep.
because if it wasn't one, they would have never found it.
Right.
So, it was just an oops. It was news for a small time when he said that, it was lost, but it was found. So, you know, and the fact that I think it was a copy of it too, so
Yeah.
they could have always, gotten another copy of the stuff on another USB drive and tried it again.
Or transmitted it over the internet for that matter. I mean, we've got that capability at this point.
Well, yeah, but I think the main reason they did it on UPS is because of all the controversy that was surrounding everything having to do with Hunter Biden, because they're protecting the Bidens.
Yep.
I mean, there's no other way of saying it. Every time something comes out that is negative towards the Bidens, they either try to say it's misinformation or it's uncorroborated or that it's a flat out lie, or they try and hide it and suppress it. Like the New York Post is a good example of that.
Mm-hmm.
Completely is a good example of that. So it's just it is what it is. So when this disappeared, everybody was going, "Oh my God, this is another attempt to protect the Bidens," when it was just a simple mistake.
Well, there are some other things that are going along with protecting the Bidens at this point too. The FBI came out, this is according to the Blaze, and says that the FBI criminal investigation into Hunter Biden and his associates remains active. So they're still looking into the guy. They've been going after it. No, this isn't that short of an article, but yeah, it's looks right now as they are still sitting there and investigating him. I don't know what they're going to find or how long this is going to take or anything. But oddly enough, and this was the one that tripped a couple of the conspiracy sensors in my brain, Jopper9, who is a regular mod over on the R-Rated Conservatives channel while I was playing video games on Thursday night, dropped a link into my chat, which I checked out after the stream, showing that Christopher Wray has some criminal ties and is making a lot of money off of the Bidens. Now, in all fairness with that, that was from a non-NewsGuard verified source, so I took that with a grain of salt. But I did some digging, and I didn't find anything about Christopher Wray getting money off of the Bidens, but there seems to be a very, very big push from both sides, especially with Trump coming in and restructuring how people are hired and fired in the executive branch. From Axios, FBI Agents Association don't fire director for Christopher Wray at the same time that this USB thing is going on, and they're investigating Hunter Biden. And it's possible, even though it's not proven at this point, that he was making money off the Bidens. So everything in here just says all kinds of weird stuff to me. And I don't know if you've heard anything about this at all, but there are tinfoil sensors in my head that are going crazy on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to have to start doing a little more. I've done some cursory digging when it first came out, and I started some link gathering when it first came out.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm really going to have to dig into it now to see if I can come up with a couple of articles for the blog. Because what's coming up for me is another update, which coming out of Nigeria, another South Africa update.
Mm-hmm.
I've been keeping up with those. And then general news and stuff for the blog. But yeah, I've been keeping my eye on it. And I tend to be, like I like to say, I tend to be late to the party on a lot of things, because if you report on something when it breaks, you either have to go back and add to the thing, or you have to go back and fix the thing if your information is wrong. So I tend to wait 1 week, sometimes a week and a half, if new stuff comes out, to see if it's corroborated, how many sources are saying the same thing about it, comparing all these different things, and then I'll go, all right, it's time for me to make an article and list all my sources. And there are certain sources that I throw out immediately. I don't do anything with Wikipedia. I try to avoid CNN and Fox because they're both on completely different, ends of the bias spectrum, so to speak. But if the information across, let's say, 6 or 7 articles is pretty much the same, then I'll take that information out and I'll correlate it and I'll put it somewhere. And then when I go back to do the article, I'll have all that information there to, write it with. So I don't jump on breaking stories as they're breaking, because it's always an ongoing thing.
Oh yeah.
And every time it's like as I like to say. Every time you sneeze, there's something going on with Hunter Biden. So it's once it starts slowing down, I'll probably start doing, little snippets here and there to remind people, hey, this is still going on. Because once the internet has the attention span of a goldfish.
Especially in
Stuff will
election
happen.
time.
Yeah, something will happen, news will break, and then maybe a day or two later, something else happens, and the thing that was important, 2 days prior, is now not even a blip on the radar. And it's interesting to see how fast the news cycle works on the internet, because it's like it works faster than my ADD. Because I like to joke, I'm like, I have ADD, but man, people forgot about this real fast.
Memory hole.
Yeah, definitely memory hole. And it's astounding because, like I said, it's the New York Post got hounded, and then their account got suspended, and then everybody trying to post the link was getting their link taken down. The U.S. Senate, because I do this thing called the government dump on my blog, they had tweeted out a link in regards to the Hunter Biden laptop and emails and stuff. Their link was being gated by Twitter. It was being suppressed. You literally had to go to their timeline to find it in order to retweet it. So they were even doing it to the U.S. Senate.
Nice.
So, yeah, they were being really blatant about it. And I'm like, wow, you guys are messing up bad. But, anything, it's like what Harvey said here. Meanwhile, if Trump's kids were caught littering, it'd be on the news for weeks. He's right. People are still, covfefe was a thing for how long?
I still have a cup that says covfefe on it.
Exactly. Every time he has a gas, they hound on it for days, weeks. Russia's still going on, and we're coming up on an election tomorrow. They keep trying to throw that in his face. And it's just absolutely astounding, and as I like to put it, and it's all because he's not Hillary.
Yep. All right. I think that's all that I have today. I think that's a show. Let's see what the live chat has to say here. Then I'll let you peddle your wares after that, and we'll head on out of here. And I'll hit when you're telling everybody where they can find you, I will hit the D-Live chest. For those of you over on D-Live that love lemons, get ready to scramble for your lemons. But let's come back up to here. Ron Helton says, yeah, and how hard is it to postmark something?
Yeah.
The Batman says, Amy Coney Barrett is a goddamn mic-dropping pinup. Yeah, she's a looker. I'll give her that. Ron says the laws need to be tested before they are unleashed like the plagues upon the people. We should not have to pay for blood-sucking attorneys to get our liberties back. Seawall points out, separate but equal was precedent. Slavery was precedent. The Batman says, Hunter Biden, or as he's now called, where's Waldo?
Yeah.
Seawall says they threw out the package before finding the drive and took no photos of it, and they refused to release any additional info to Tucker. And Harvey says it was Marussia, and then we got her comment about Trump's kids being caught littering, so she'll have that. And the Batman will get last word and say, Hail Hydra. So, for the new people in here that are being acquainted with you for the first time, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you, and I will hit the D-Live chest and get the rewards out to the people.
Okay. Well, I'm going to put this in the YouTube chat. You could probably circulate the blog link again if you want. If you just put .com at the end of the MWM-media there in the YouTube chat. That way they don't delete it again. My name is Maddy, as everybody has lovingly nicknamed me on the internet. MWM Media is my channels and all of my content. That's short for Mad Woman Muses. This Mad, not the angry Mad. All of my social media links you can find on my blog. I am going to be adding a couple more. Parler and Storyfire will be added over there over the course of the week onto the blog. Every way that you could possibly, if you want to follow me there, you can sign up and follow and get blogs as I post them up there. Anything from current events to documentaries and true crime stories I put up on the blog. There's also links to other blogs that I have on there as well. So It's very much a no-nonsense, lighthearted blogger. Yeah, I tend to put my 2 cents here and there. I do have a writing blog too that's linked to my main news blog too. So, because I am an aspiring writer, I am waiting on final edits on a novel in order to finally get it published and hopefully find somebody with reasonable rates to make me a cover. Because, the problem is not breaking the bank trying to find somebody to make a cover for your book. But you can also find me if you want to follow me on Twitter, as he will be here for 10 hours. I'll probably be there 10 hours on Twitter doing live updates for, the actual, who's voting on what and what the results are. So let me see if I can do this without getting fat fingered. There we go. That is my handle on Twitter. You can find me there. So while he's on his channel, if you want to pop over to Twitter and see what's going on with me, if you're following me there. If you want a live update on your state, all you got to do is tag me on Twitter. I'll check my notifications and give you an update on how your state is doing as far as the election is going tomorrow. And I may, haunt Edgar over here tomorrow for about a half an hour.
Yeah, absolutely.
As well.
Absolutely. You can definitely come in here. And like I mentioned, tomorrow for 10 hours, we will be discussing the election, the events that are leading up to there. I've got some guests that are confirmed that are going to be coming up, including Maddy, who's going to be on for just a bit there. Plus, we will be taking calls all day throughout all of it tomorrow. So follow the instructions with that. It's pretty easy. Get in the waiting room and ping yourself and pick me, and I will pull you in for that. So absolutely, anybody's welcome to do so. Absolutely come and do that. And I think that's a wrap there. Also, I'll have you afterwards throw your Discord into my Discord so people can go and follow you over there, because I see that you go up into the live chat and have that discussion too every once in a while. I've never partaken, but I probably should at some point.
Oh yeah, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays I'm in my news Discord, and Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays I'm in my geek one. And the geek one is news and politics free, because sometimes you need a break from this crap.
Oh yeah, that's why I do gaming on Thursday nights. All right, we are going to head on out of here. Thanks everybody. Where's my outro music? There it is.
Thank you for having me.
And thanks everybody who came and hung out with us in the live chat and kept us honest, brought some of the news stories to us, and kept us going with that, fact-checked us when we needed to, and just, on the most part, having a great time. So, if you want to continue the conversation with me, you can find me in the Discord links that were provided. You can find me over on Twitter. That's at @EdsBlogTwitter with a 1 in place of the I. And lastly, never take the words of bloggers, podcasters, or journalists as gospel. Find all the facts and draw your own conclusion. Why don't you lead them out of here with some words of wisdom?
Ooh, me?
Yes.
Question everything, triple check everything, and if it comes from mainstream media, don't believe it.
Take care.